From a story standpoint, this flick features Arthas, who is the king's son, and he has just been on a very horrific campaign in the far north, fighting against the undead. He managed to vanquish the undead, and he is now returning home, but what we find out in the storyline is that in order to defeat his very powerful enemies, he has pretty much sold out his soul, and he's pretty much become the tool for his enemies to ultimately undo humanity and bring this great kingdom to ruin. So it's a very interesting tone at the beginning of this flick. We see Arthas returning home. The trumpets are blaring. The sunlight. They're throwing the rose petals, but we have an underlying sense of something's not quite right. It's kind of uncomfortable.
He's always hooded.
Right.
Try to keep his face in the shadows.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very imperious. Back to the Stark throne room, but. It was always very interesting to me that the movie starts out with a very upbeat tone.
Well, that was sort of the idea is, the player wouldn't really know if Arthas had gone to the dark side, so to speak.
They know he kind of snapped a little bit and went a little bit too far, but there's still a sense that, he did save the day. Did his, actions justify the means? Great shot of Frostmourne here, which is essentially the sword he picks up and steals his soul. But it's essentially the sword that allows him to win. But we'll see that he's just being played by greater, darker powers and becoming, the ultimate enemy of his people, which was the plan for him established long ago.
So one thing is, if you notice in the background, you saw two hooded undead ghouls. I always found it kind of funny just how we kind of pulled it off. Arthas and two undead guys take the throne.
But you never, upon first watching, you assume that
now that
I
brought it up, I'm sure everyone out there is like, what?
Mm-hmm.
But I always get a kick out of that. So here's obviously the last shot, and one thing I really wanted to try to do with the sound is really have bells sound different from the first bells, more like a bell of doom versus a bell of victory.